Hey there, my name is Nick, and let's talk about one of my favorite, simpler board games. Love Letter, designed by Seiji Kanai and published by Alderac Entertainment Group and many other companies. The reason that I enjoy Love Letter is because the number of actions you can take are shallow, but the strategic depth is expansive. The premise of the game is trying to profess your love to a princess, and you do so through the different characters and the clout that they have, where the higher the clout, the more likely your letter of love is going to get to the princess. The remaining player who can deliver their letter through the highest clout individual is the one who gets a token of the princess's affection. Let's see how this looks on setup. At the beginning of every round, the same deck of cards is shuffled to create the deck. A card is removed or burned from the deck, and everyone is dealt a card. The last player to win a token of affection, or the first player to start, draws a card and then plays a card. Action passes clockwise around the table, and the next player draws and plays a card. This continues until only one person remains, or the deck has 0 cards. Whoever has the highest remaining card wins a token of affection if there are other players who have not been knocked out, where this is where everyone else has been knocked out, and this is the one with the highest card. These rounds are played until a certain number of tokens of affections have been reached by a player, and that player instantly wins. It should be clear what the axiom is here. A player wins if they hit a certain amount of tokens. This also relates to the single proof that comes along with it. Getting a point at the winning amount, -1, wins you the game. An opponent reaching this goal loses you the game. Let's take a look at how to maximize your chance of winning. Here I have 3 metrics that will be relevant at all player counts. Your points, the highest other player's points, and the maximum points a single player holds. We can see pretty clearly that we want to be at the highest victory points of all players to win. If the yellow dotted line covers ours, that means we are winning. How can we tell how well we are doing? If you take the slope of the lines, you can see what your average win rate looks like, based on how steep the slope is. Another metric you can use to see if you are winning is the distance from the highest victory points of all players from your line. But here's an interesting question. If you are in a 3-player game or higher, what happens if someone with the lowest amount of victory points gets a point? If this player isn't yourself, and this person is below the max point line, then the line doesn't increase, meaning your distance doesn't increase from that line. This means it is more important sometimes to have the lowest player win a round if you yourself cannot get a victory point. This brings us to the next subproof. If you can guarantee that the losing player wins, you don't lose as much ground as having the leading player win, if they are not yourself. Before we get into the subproofs, let's take a look at each of the cards and see what the chances are of being eliminated while holding on to any of them. Here's an overview of the value of holding on to each card. We'll be going into more depth on each one. You can see here that holding onto the card seems to be more valuable the lower the number is. In most cases this is true, except for a situation we'll come to when we cover the Baron card. You can see the ability above, which allows you to eliminate other players, which is good, but something perhaps more important is that it makes you immune from guards to hold a guard in your hand. There is little detrimental about holding or playing a guard. For the priest, knowing a player's card allows you a better chance of eliminating or beating that person's card at the end of the game. It can put a target on your back, however, so be careful. For the Baron, The chart is in the top right of the win rates, which changes as the deck size changes. You can see that at around Handmaiden, it's above 50%. But if you play with a prince or a king, you can hit a good 3 out of 4 chance of succeeding in playing a baron. Using a baron with a princess guarantees the opponent's elimination, but there is a chance that doing so reveals your card based on how high the other person's card is. Baron is risky to hold onto, but can be riskier to play. Handmaid is a very powerful card. Holding onto a handmaid does not interact with other cards, and playing it is very often beneficial. Prince. When the Countess is still possibly in the deck, this is a risky card to hold onto. Also, be careful who you use it on, because it removes any information players have on that person. King. An extremely dangerous card to have. It is very powerful towards the end of the game, but trading with another player is something like a free priest action for them. If you hand them a guard, that can spell doom for you, as they can guess whatever you gave them. If you get a guard from them, however, you are safe from being guarded back. Countess. An interesting card. Very dangerous with prince, king, and princess in play, but discarding it in some situations can say surprisingly little about your hand. Be wary holding on to it as the game goes on, as it becomes easier and easier to guess what you might have. But, it being the second highest card may also be important for winning by being the highest card at the end of the round. Princess. The absolute worst card to get early on. It means you are guaranteed Baron plays, but almost everything else is lethal against you. It may be necessary to draw players' attentions away from you to win early on. But, if you get her at the end of the game, you can almost be guaranteed success. That's a quick overview of all the cards. Now let's look at the rest of the subproofs and everything else to cover at the very end of this video. Another way of winning is having the highest card at the end. Remember to watch for the game end condition of the deck running out, and attempt to make plays that win you the game, win a player not in the lead of the game, or attempt to draw into the highest card with a prince or king. If all else fails, well, let's just say there are plenty of rounds to play out. Great, we've gone over the proofs, but just a few last things to mention. Many of the lower numbered cards are valuable to play or hold onto, while the higher cards, and Baron, can be a detriment to hold onto. Once we learn that is the case, it's valuable to realize that if holding onto a small card is valuable, playing a small card signals that the other card in the hand is also small. If the other card was a high card, they are achieving a lower Q times A from holding onto it, which is detrimental to them. Also, the king and princess may not be aligned with a small card rule, so keep an eye out for players who seem to play nothing but low cards, as that might mean they're holding one of those two cards, the king or princess, in their hand. Thanks for watching. I had a blast going over some of the strategies that I know for Love Letter. If you'd like, please comment below on what strategies you have found, which ones of mine you found interesting, and anything else you would like to comment on. I would love to discuss with all of you.